Thank you very much for inviting us. I am Sean Bullick. I'm the Chief Executive of a business improvement district company based in Newcastle called NE1. I just wanted to run through very briefly a little bit about Newcastle itself as a city, and then talk a little bit about the legal structure. But actually, I think Helena has explained that really very effectively already. And then just talk about some of the things we've achieved and how we've gone about doing it. So hopefully that will retain your interest for the next 20 minutes or so. First things first, where is Newcastle? Everybody in Newcastle imagines as everybody else knows where we are, but they don't necessarily. You can see on the east coast of England, we're right up there at the very northeast of England. There is a concern post-Brexit, particularly, that if Scotland were to go back into the European Union, then we really end up at the very edge of the known economic world, and as such, I think that makes our job in terms of promoting the city and developing the attractiveness and industry of the city all the more important. Newcastle was, we say, the first world city. That picture was taken about 80 or 90 years ago. And it's the river, the quayside, which was a hub of activity from all around the world. We used to manufacture guns, ships, coal, steel, cigarettes, all sorts of things, and trade around the world with them. We don't do that any longer. And indeed, we went through a period of quite serious economic decline in the 1980s. Certainly not alone in that. A lot of European cities will recognise that, but that's the same area in the mid-1980s. And since we established ourselves, again, the same area, we, in a sense, have reinvented that area of the city as both a professional services area, but also as a leisure area with the marina that we built there. And it always pleases us when people see pictures of that and imagine that it's somewhere in Scandinavia rather than in Newcastle, given the traditional perceptions of Newcastle. So that's sort of where we're at. In terms of our background, we were first established in 2009. We have a turnover of around £2 million a year in terms of our core revenue, so about 20 million kroner. And that's generated from a 1% levy on the business taxes of the 1,400 businesses in the centre of Newcastle. We're small, there's about 10 of us. We're not bound by public sector procurement and public sector regulations, so that allows us to be flexible and allows us to be able to react quickly. We're a private limited company, but we're not for profit, so anything we make, any revenues we generate go back into the business. And we have a group of non-executive directors as well as 3 executive directors who help provide input and expertise from in relation to anything from legal issues to development and property type issues. Our membership is made up of 1,400 property operators. So those can be anything from professional services, accountants, etc., through to a hospital, 2 universities, a football club, shops, bars, restaurants, etc. So a huge range with different interests. And we need to keep that range and interests satisfied because every 5 years, as Helena explained earlier, we need to go back to a ballot. And every 5 years we have a formal, legally robust ballot process whereby through a postal vote over a period of 28 days, our businesses vote in favour, we hope, of the proposal we set out for them. So the first time we did this in 2009, 67% of our businesses voted in favour. And then the second time in 2013, 78% voted in favour. So that suggests to us that while we have more friends to win, we are nonetheless making progress, and businesses are recognising that they're getting a return on investment. As I say, we're funded, unlike the German model and unlike the American model, we're funded by business operators rather than property owners. That said, however, we think there's a lot of scope to work with property owners, particularly on very focused capital projects. And we're pleased to say that after quite a lot of lobbying, the government introduced legislation just about 10 days ago to allow us to establish property owner bids. So assuming that all goes through safely, then we will have that opportunity. In terms of how we operate, it's really important that we listen to what our members have to say, obviously, because they can vote us out. It's also important we challenge them. We need to make sure that we are keeping ambition and keeping perspective at the right level, and that we don't sit there comfortably thinking that because we're the biggest city in the region, that's good enough. As I say, we have to recognise the priorities of the different sectors of our membership, and demonstrating a return on investment and in a sense denying that we're a tax is hugely important. We've always stressed the fact that you will get a return, you will get more back than you invest in this. And so we spend a lot of time working out figures in terms of economic impact, spend, footfall, and those sorts of things. I think an important point about the model is that, again, I think as Helena said earlier, we're not talking about huge amounts of money here. £2 million doesn't go very far in terms of what a local authority would have to spend or a developer would have to spend. The really key thing is that we sit at the middle of that network, and at the middle of all of that, and working all of those different networks provides the value that, again, Helena was talking about. So that's what we seek to do, to catalyse and to facilitate. In terms of what we've delivered, what I've called traditional bid programs, that tends to be where the sorts of clean and green, the kind of crime and those sort of almost sort of housekeeping issues is where we started, and we still deliver those. I need to remind ourselves that as we've sort of become interested in wider issues, that we mustn't forget those basics. But beyond those basics, profile is hugely important to us. As I say, we're a city right at the top end of England and very easily overlooked or forgotten. And we need to get the city's name out there, and we need to make sure that it's known for the right things. So it's known for its medical research expertise, or it's known for its subsea engineering, or whatever the sector might be. That's what we want to emphasise. Alive After 5 is a project I'll come back to in a moment. We run events, we run youth unemployment programs, we run capital projects. So basically, we will do pretty much anything, provided it's legal. We'll do anything that will help the business environment. So that can sit anywhere across really quite a broad spectrum. Alive After 5 is, I think, arguably our sort of biggest commercial success, and that was basically a project whereby we got the retailers to agree to stay open until 8 o'clock across the week. So previously they'd shut at 5 o'clock. The city was dead and unattractive and potentially unsafe. Between that 5 o'clock close and the sort of 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock reappearance of people for the evening economy. So we put a package together whereby the shops all agreed to stay open until 8. We provided free parking, which provided the incentive for the consumers to come in. We put on all sorts of events. We marketed it very heavily. We ensured that there was a proper security presence, etc. And that I think all sectors have benefited from that, not just retail. So the leisure sector has benefited, the the universities and the professional services have benefited in different ways. And the value of that over the 6 years that we've run it is, we estimated, based on surveys of consumer spend, over £700 million. And it's attracted over 11 million new visitors to the city centre. So that's on the back of investment over that period of about £2 million. So again, in terms of return on investment, that's really significant. Events, we run events for two reasons, really. The obvious one, to attract people into the city to spend money, but they also give us an opportunity to present the city in the light we want it to be seen. So a motor show, I was explaining earlier this morning that I'm not sure what perception, if any, there is of Newcastle here, but certainly in England, and in the south of England in particular, it's seen as very dark and dirty and cold and poor. And while there are elements of truth in that, it's other things as well. So for us to have the opportunity to show off cars that people want to see on a very beautiful street is helpful. Equally, it has been seen as a rough industrial city. To be able to welcome or host the biggest gay pride event or biggest free gay pride event in England is something which helps challenge people's perceptions of the city in a positive way, we hope. We run various restaurant week events which cause people to come in and spend money. And with our two universities, we attract students from 152 countries. There are around 80,000 students who in Newcastle, and that's something that's hugely important in terms of ongoing networks and links as they graduate and spread the word, essentially. How much longer have I got? I'll skip over that one, but that is actually Newcastle, not Sydney. Youth unemployment, as I mentioned, again, I think the model is very helpful in the sense that we have 1,400 businesses and we have a whole lot of young unemployed kids, and we can match them, and we can match them very cost effectively. So that's something that government is interested in rolling out. That model is something government's interested in rolling out in other cities, and we tackled it in the first place because business considered it to be something of a weight around its neck. The fact that there was this unutilized, untapped into big youth group who weren't working. Capital projects, just finally. As I say, we're moving on towards much more focus on capital projects. What we tend to do here is put in some money or secure money from a number of sources, and then get matches from whether it's local authority, whether it's rail operators, private operators, etc. But just very briefly, and I'm afraid the images aren't very good, but the image on the left is our central station as it was. So that would be the site that would greet you when you arrived 2 or 3 years ago. And although that's a CGI on the right, it is actually a proper likeness of what it looks like. So we through that project, that £25 million project, managed to project, or managed to produce rather, a welcome to the city, which is appropriate as a welcome to a city in the region. So it was the station itself and the area out the front as well, and the traffic network. Equally, we have the sort of main leisure area, which again on the photograph on the left, you can see there is preparing for a night of overindulgence, but actually not really as a economic unit any longer sustainable. So Adrian, who is here, my colleague up over there, managed to secure £3.5 million in order to invest in the public realm on some of the building frontages, and with that, the promise of 30 million from private operators who will invest in their own individual businesses. So an opportunity to transform that part of the city. And then finally, Northumberland Street, the same principle, but that's our main shopping street, which is looking very tatty. And we have managed, through a lot of work, to get the local authority and the various property owners interested in investing significantly. We hope that this will be our first property owner bid example. And the property owner bids and the local authority will match their respective funding in order to deliver something significantly more attractive commercially. Main challenges originally, nobody knew what we did, and we didn't have any track record, and we had the challenge of not having a great deal of money and having to be able to, in a sense, become credible. I think now, having delivered and having secured a track record which is recognised, we have some of those problems still, but the main issue really is that there are the sorts of issues that I think any city centre developer or property owner would face as you look to further develop the city centre economy using a bid as a tool for urban development. We're looking at design, construction, planning, all those sorts of questions which any business of that sort has to face. And to be honest, we're very happy to have those challenges because it means we're in the right place and we're actually doing significant things which are making a difference. And that, I hope I haven't run over time, but I think is the end of my piece. So thank you for listening.